Hello, my name is Benjamin Johnston, and I'm sitting here with the fabulous Erin Stetzer of Erin Stetzer Homes, and I'm so excited to be able to have a conversation with her on the heels of our collaboration building my personal home. So, Erin, I have a question for you. It's something that you and I deal with, but I want to maybe understand your perspective on it. Everybody goes into a construction project, identifying costs, establishing a budget, allowances, you name it. And there's often this notion that the budget is going to be finitely what's on the page. Tell us about the tools that you utilize to be able to give some breathing room to that process of construction.
I love it. So a lot of this is related to a process of pricing. For example, with your firm, we would have some initial meetings and then we would have a schematic design, right? So something that informs us of, okay, this is what this home looks like, this is how it flows. And then it's moved into a pricing set, okay? So we essentially have about 80% of the information we need from the architects and designers, in your case, both, right? One stop. And at that point, we reach out to all of our trades and vendors and collect pricing. And what you mentioned is important. It's placed on a sheet of paper, maybe 6, 7, 8 pages. And there's a number at the bottom, and that's the budget. And so the first reaction, and we've seen this many times with clients, would be, okay, great, that's our number, let's go to the bank. Or that's our number, let's get started and get that permit. And so what both of us do is we call time out, and we have a conversation that we're not quite there. We have some things to develop. But in that pricing document, we have the conversation, pretty sure on these items, but we need more information on these items. And so we work through that as a group, right? You know, each of these cost codes, frame, sheetrock, drywall, trim. You as the designer and the architect and the client, again, you mentioned breathing room.
Right.
How did you maneuver with that budget in your home?
That's a fantastic question. I would say a couple of things. Contingency is obviously something that most contractors include, and the contingency is the line item that could be a percentage of the total construction cost that allows you to kind of say, okay, this is like a slush fund. We want to make sure that some movement that you can play with. With my home, one major line item could be stone. There's a very big difference between just doing your countertops in stone versus doing also your backsplashes in stone. That can double the amount of stone that you use. I think a lot of times budgets don't necessarily work that way. Like if they've sent it out to the subcontractor to bid, they're going to just assume countertops. That number is potentially going to really grow when you're doing countertops and backsplashes in stone. One of the things that we knew going into this, because when we designed up to the point when you did your pricing set, it didn't include full splash stone, like the stone you're seeing behind me in this kitchen. You go into it really saying, okay, at least I have some money set aside for doing this, but it's anything that you're going to necessarily want to do after you put pen to paper is really the client's responsibility to see if they're comfortable with spending those extra dollars for an upgrade in a certain area.
So what would be your recommendation? There's the budget, and we know that we haven't quite resolved, let's say, the countertops.
Sure.
Or we haven't quite resolved the wood floors, right? Are they fumed? Are they larger planked? Are they herringbone, right? We haven't really worked through all of that on paper. What are you recommending for your clients so that they can actually plan for this and it may not be on paper?
First things is to establish, I think, what I call the spirit of exploration with the client and say, I'm going to tell you that there's going to be some surprises. There's going to be some things that you did not anticipate. There's going to be challenges that things didn't work out the way you thought they were going to be. And those are the bumps in the road that are going to make for a really good story when all of this is done. And so there's this notion of a romance of saying, you're building a custom home that nobody else has built. It is a one-of-a-kind masterpiece of design. You've got to just know that there's going to be a journey associated with that you're going to be able to tell your friends and family about for years to come. Many clients only do this once in their life. Some of them 2 or 3 times in their lives, but very few of them go into it as seasoned in terms of that process as my team is going to be or your team is going to be. So we kind of just have to work in some romance around that. The second thing we also have to do is before shovels go in the ground, every last detail has to be figured out. Every last detail, every drawing, every detail, every material must be chosen. It's the only way to kind of avoid surprises. And every one of those has to be accurately priced. On this particular house, you asked me about one challenge. When we did the soils test for this property, it revealed clean soil, good substrate. We were ready to rock and roll. We had
champagne out there.
We had champagne out. We were ready to go. And then when y'all started drilling those piers, y'all found all sorts of things buried in the ground that were from the previous construction that was on this site, like a bathtub that was buried under the ground, and asphalt from the parking lot that was on this property buried underground. I mean, these were things that the soils test did not reveal. But surprise, you got to do it. Those are one of those things that I say, be prepared for the unexpected. If you're really not comfortable with that, we're going to have to pause, slow down the design process, slow down the pre-construction, and really take your time to figure out every last detail.
I don't know how many people actually have the conversation in the beginning about, again, what are your goals? If your budget, $500,000, $5 million, $50 million, like you just said, it's the story that they're writing. This is their book.
Yes.
We're just here
to make it happen.
To write the words.
The budget is something that is such high priority for them. We have to have that conversation about putting the process in place to give them the most peace of mind and the most upfront cost. But many of those clients aren't willing to take the time to slow down to figure it out. They're like, well, I want to start construction as soon as possible. Well, if you want to start construction as soon as possible, you're going to have to, again, be lured in by the romance that you're going to have some surprises along the way.
Right. And maybe that's the time to say, great, let's get started. We're 80% sure about your budget.
Yeah.
We've got 20% to work out. Are you okay with that?
Yes. I put them in the driver's seat to say, speed the most important thing to you? Is the budget the most important thing to you? Is the quality of the design the most important to you? So that I know how to help guide you through that process and those challenging situations.
That's interesting because we all reflect, we do an audit of each project as a team. Like what worked, what didn't work. The things that come up in our audit are 6 things. It's before we start a project, we want to be very clear on the 3 drivers, okay? But what we start with is, in order of magnitude, there's quality, there's function, aesthetics, intrinsic value, like the value you have in this home, like this is your masterpiece. There's cost and there's time. You get to pick 3.
It's a good 6.
You pick 3. Like if I think about this home, definitely intrinsic value. This means a lot to you and Eric. This is your masterpiece. Definitely quality. And if I were to pick a 3rd, I would say function.
Yes.
Those are my 3 for you.
You were spot on. I mean, speed was not the situation that we were interested in.
Nope.
Obviously, aesthetics was important, but I think the aesthetics I had handled.
Yes, right. It was a given.
Every one of your clients is going to have a different set of 3. They're
for sure.
They're
for
all
sure.
going
Like
to be
production
different.
home
Right.
building. My first home was a production home. This is what we could afford, right? It was cost. It was speed. And I think intrinsic value for us because it was like our first home.
Of course.
Right? So everybody has this formula, but it's really important to go through that with the team from the beginning so that we have to make quick decisions. You probably make, 15 decisions a day.
Which is
on
why
one
it's
client?
really hard for me to figure out where I want to go for dinner, and I typically leave it
You're
to
out of
Eric.
gas.
I'm out of gas. I have made enough decisions today. Please don't ask me for one.
And then you're like, Eric, don't even talk to me at dinner.
I know.
Can you entertain
Just don't
me?
talk to me.
Can you make me laugh?
And he does such a good job of that.
Yes, he does.
So anyway, well, thank you for us.
That was fun.
Yeah, that's good.